If you've been following what FC Cincinnati has been up to off the field, you know there are some big changes coming to the West End. And you could make the argument that this is a more transformative project than the stadium itself. And is it a good thing for the long-term residents of the West End? Or is it just going to push those people out of the neighborhood? In this video, I'm going to break down the entire mixed-use development project being built around TQL Stadium. I'll talk about what's being built, how's it transforming the area around it, what we can expect for property values, and the impact on the local people in the West End. And of course, we're going to touch on the controversy surrounding the entire project because it wouldn't be a stadium development without controversy in Cincinnati. No matter if you are a homeowner or someone who is trying to find the right neighborhood in Cincinnati, or maybe you are just interested in how these big development projects impact the city, this is going to be information you want to know. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear idea of how this project is going to impact the West End, and you will know if this is going to be the neighborhood for you. So drop us a comment if you still have a question, or as always, reach out directly because we have all of our contact information in the video description. And of course, I would love to help you navigate this fast-changing real estate market. To understand why this development is so important, I think we need to look back at the history of the West End. And if you've been here for less than a couple years, I think it's excusable to not understand how much history we have in the West End. This area has some of the richest history in Cincinnati. The West End was known as a dense neighborhood with a strong working class, thriving culture, and great entertainment. In a not so distant past, you could have bumped into some of the greatest jazz musicians the world has ever seen right in the West End. But over time, we've seen a familiar story play out in the West End, and I say familiar because it's the same thing that has impacted all of Greater Cincinnati. Industry has changed, jobs have gone away, and this was a bigger impact here than a lot of other places. Worse than that, though, is the highway that was built right through some of the most prominent areas in and around the West End. The interstate highway system physically kicked people out of this neighborhood and the neighboring neighborhood of Queensgate, which basically doesn't exist anymore. So losing the strong base of jobs and residents has had a huge negative impact on the West End. Fast forward to today, and we're seeing a lot of new interest and new investment in the area. Of course, everyone knows about TQL Stadium, but even before FC Cincinnati considered the area for their stadium, we were seeing new investment into the West End. A lot of this is spillover investment from over the Rhine, but the trends were there for the West End to improve, just not nearly as quickly as when the stadium went in. Of course, a stadium is such an economic driver. It is driving new jobs to the area. It's also driving other businesses to consider that area because it's so transformative for the neighborhood. And speaking of investment in the area, this project alone is a $332 million investment, and it has $26 million coming from the state of Ohio in the way of tax credits. So what's actually being built? You can break this down into four categories. There's a residential development, there is the hotel and hospitality development, retail and commercial development, and a major event space and community plaza. The residential development is expected to have both apartments and condos, so if you're looking to rent or buy in the area, you should have options. What I think is most interesting about this development is that there are fewer, if any, height restrictions in the area. In fact, there is plans to have a 13-story building in this development. That's tall enough to have an impact on the skyline of Cincinnati. So let's say you're someone who really wants to be in the thick of it, you want to be near entertainment, you want to be near nightlife. This might actually be an option for you when it's done a few years in the future. But that's not the only 13-story building that's being planned. There's also a 13-story hotel building that they are planning to put in this area. I think this fills a huge need. So first of all, obviously FC Cincinnati is bringing a lot of people from out of town into the area, and they need places to stay. Having an option in the West End is going to be more desirable for people going to those games and concerts in the area rather than having to commute downtown. And even if they were looking to stay downtown, that's actually a need in downtown as well. If you dig into the current development projects around the city, you actually see multiple hotel projects downtown and near downtown, this one included. And having more quality hotel rooms is a huge deciding factor in getting some major events in Cincinnati that we've been passed up on in the past. Right now, Cincinnati is trying to attract the Sundance Music Festival. Having enough hotels for the people coming in for that festival is hugely important. When you think of development around a stadium, you probably quickly think of restaurants and bars. Of course, the hotels come with it too, but restaurants and bars are really important to be near a stadium. Again, people need a place to go when they're not at the actual event they're in town for. So of course, this development includes bars and restaurants for those people in the area. So even if you're not a soccer fan, this might be one of your new destination areas in the city, even just for a regular night out. So I think this is a really positive impact because we do see OTR and downtown being great destinations for people looking for retail and of course for those office locations. But expanding the core of our city out a little bit more is good for the city overall. One of the key components to this development is the event plaza. So again, they're developing this area to not just be for soccer fans. This is an area that you may come to in the future for festivals and concerts alike. This is an interesting aspect to me too, because recently in Cincinnati, we've seen a lot of new developments in concert venues. So we've seen the Andrew Brady concert venue downtown, as well as the Megacorp concert venue right across the river in Newport that happened at the same time. At that time, I wasn't sure if our city had enough demand to support those very similar venues, but I've been proven wrong on that because those two venues are doing well, and it seems like we still have more demand and we can attract more concerts if we have more venues to hold those concerts. So how will all of this impact local home values? To me, I think it's pretty clear that home values in this area should expect appreciation. And not just a little appreciation, this area will probably outpace much of the rest of the city in year-over-year gains. Now, that's not to say all of the West End is going to see the same appreciation, because maybe you do have some situations in which you end up with a loud or high traffic area near a home, and that might not be as desirable as one that has a little bit of distance from this specific development. However, all that can be mitigated if they plan this out right. And it seems like they have so far, so it's yet to be seen exactly how this will impact each of the little pockets of the West End. I think another clear impact though is there will be increased demand for rentals, including short-term rentals. Now on the short-term rental demand, the one thing that could have a separate impact on that is the hotel development. So of course we're going to see more demand for people looking for those short-term rentals, but the hotel might make up for all of that increased demand. So that's yet to be seen. But just know, I think the overall impact on values here is more people are going to have interest in the West End. And really though, the smart investors are already investing in this area. Not everyone's happy about all of this though. There are certain people that are really worried about the long-term residents of the West End. Home values going up is great for homeowners. However, it's not necessarily great for the people who have been renting there for years and years. And even some of the homeowners aren't going to be super excited about values going up because it also impacts what they owe in taxes every year. So with as much good that I see in this development, one might see some personal negative impact if they're driven out of the community. So I think it's important for the city of Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati, and all of the developers involved in this area to consider how they are impacting those long-term residents. And what can we do to mitigate some of those negative issues that they may see that could displace them from this area? The one thing that we can absolutely know about this project is as soon as it breaks ground, the West End will be different than what it has been. We can look 5 years, 10 years into the future, and the West End we see will not be the West End we knew for the last 50 years. However, the West End of the last 50 years is not the West End that it was 50 years before that. I love how much historical significance we can find in this area and a lot of other areas in Cincinnati. But I don't think that we have to be so tied to our history to spite our future. And it's not our history that I'm concerned about. It is today, and it's the people that are in the West End today. There are people there that have lived there for 10 years, 20 years, and even longer that are at risk of being completely displaced from this project. Most of that is indirect displacement, specifically from rents going up, and even home values going up, which means their tax burden and insurance may go up. So what I hope for with this project is that we do see all of the benefits that I'm excited about with it. However, that we watch out for our neighbors. And looking out for our neighbors is exactly why I'm in this business as a realtor. So if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in Cincinnati, including Ohio and Kentucky, I would love to hear from you. All of my contact information is in the show description. You can click a link there or just give me a call, and I would love to have that conversation with you. You can easily schedule an appointment by clicking a link or just giving me a call or shooting me a text. The real estate market is always changing, and I would love to help you navigate the process.